I'm up at night just like, man, I need to get into some more grocery stores. I'm up emailing these contacts and I haven't heard anything back. And literally it was midnight and she emailed me back and I'm at midnight and I'm just at my computer like. So I get to the meeting. I told her, like, we sell a lot of barbecue sauce. She says, I know you do. I was at a show and I saw you and you had a line around this corner. And I was like, why didn't you come and see me?
Welcome to The Hurdle, a podcast where we talk to interesting, everyday entrepreneurs.
We tell our stories. I'm Max.
I'm Jade.
Let's dive in.
We're so excited to have Mike White with us today. He is a serial entrepreneur from Salem, Oregon, and we met him in person for the first time last week when we came and visited you at your restaurant and also checked out your warehouse where you ship your barbecue sauce.
Correct.
Because you also make barbecue sauce.
Yes.
And he also has ventures in, fitness and startup funding, and you do some venture catalyst work.
That's the first time I heard venture cap. It's always venture capitalists, right?
Right.
It's catalyst though, right? Yeah. So what is the difference there?
Entrepreneurial ecosystem building, a lot of business advising, connecting entrepreneurs to other resources to help scale their business.
Oh, cool. That's very different. Yeah. That's like the positive version, like the venture capitalist.
Right.
It's kind of like usually like a guy in a top hat, monocle.
Totally. That's what that looks like.
Yeah.
It's also called innovation catalyst too. So it's
okay.
Same difference.
Yeah. We love fancy words.
Yeah,
business,
exactly.
Right? Yeah, MBA words.
Yeah.
Awesome. So and this is my podcast co-host, Max. And do you want to kick it off with?
Yeah, I mean, one thing you were talking about last week was this guy over here, Mike White, was a hustler as a kid. And I just want to know kind of like what kind of hustles were you doing? At what age were you doing it? Like, where did you even get the idea to do it? Like that's crazy to me.
Oh man, I think, okay, so one of the first hustles, like learning, like mischievously trying to do things. I have my mom's friend. I was in 7th, 8th grade, and it was a pyramid scheme where it was over cell phones. So, you sign people up on these cell phones, you get paid for doing that. So I started signing up everyone on my football, basketball team, like
sweet.
And they got shut down real quick by a parent that, I got like $135 check for it or something like that, like an initial check. And then that was it. So that's when I started to learn, okay, you can start signing people up for services and I get a monthly payout for that as a kid. It's like, wow, okay. And it shows you, if you got this many people underneath you, this is how much money you would make every month. And I'm like, you joking me?
Yeah.
Like that's a lot, as a kid, that's a lot of money.
Totally.
Right?
Beats mowing lawns, right?
Yeah, that was one. And then that was 7th, 8th grade. The next hustle was more of my own, where I needed to make some money. I'm looking for, I don't want to go work at a regular job. I want to have my own business. I want to have my own hustle. So I got connected with someone that actually got Louis Vuitton, Coach, Prada purses out of New York. They were all, they weren't real. But I used to throw parties for moms in Lake Oswego and West Lynn.
Parties for moms.
Yeah, party for mom. And literally, I'd roll in with a bunch of just duffel bags and purses and all kinds of things. And literally moms were just like, this is real. I'm like, yeah, this is only $100. And like, what? Sign me up. Yeah, I'll get that for you like in 2 weeks. Right. And they'd write me a check. It would go and I'd get and I had to pay the dude. They'd come from New York and no problems whatsoever. And so I paid for a couple trips to go to like Mexico by the age of 17 years old.
Oh my, that is early. So you were interested in not working a 9 to 5, just period.
Well, I mean, I was more interested in making money and larger checks, and that was a lot easier. It was a large amount of money in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, so I wasn't mature enough to say, hey, this is how I need to grow my network to grow this business.
Sure.
Right. I wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
It was a hustle. So, I mean, I didn't really have any longevity in it. So, I mean, I just shut it down. Like, I don't know that many Lake Oswego and West win moms,
Mhm.
right? And like, I wasn't really trying to like, who else wants to throw a party? Like one other person, what?
You already
one or
tapped your
two.
market. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
it was done, and you know, I made a good chunk of money from doing that. But I would say it came maybe out in the Oregonian that there was this huge Coach Parada like lawsuit going on with fake merch. And it was huge. It was like $1 billion issue globally. I mean, that was after I already shut it down. I'm like, oh, I was like looking at my grandmother, like, oh, snaps.
Dodged
You got lucky.
Like, whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't know like
Totally.
what that really looked like. Didn't even think about it. I was just like, yes, I can sell some purses to women. Everyone wanted the wallets and all.
Yeah.
They wanted
Yeah.
a Coach wallet.
Yeah.
I got that.
That's great. So that was in high school, right?
Yes.
Did you go to college right after high school, or?
So I took a couple classes at a community college, and then I ended up having a different career. I wanted to get into the medical field, and so that's when I went to actually played basketball at Lynn Benton Community College for a couple of years, but then went to Portland State and graduated there it was basically biochemistry.
So your focus was biochemistry?
It was, yes. It was pre-med. It was a bunch of pre-med. So I was dissecting human cadavers.
Oh my gosh.
From scratch.
That has to help with making sauces. I'm assuming.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, so you had the like entrepreneurial hitch like early on, right? Like,
right. I understood that there's a consumer and they want a product, and it's like you need to deliver that to them, and then you get paid for that. And then buying inventory. Like I saw, the person in New York that I was getting these purses from, they're like, well, this is all. I mean, he usually dealt with adults that were in this game. And I was like, bro, I only got like $300. I'm like, let me just get some. He said, so he basically gave me the sample purses so I can throw my party and have samples for people to touch and feel. And then that was his, and he let me borrow that. So then, I ended up buying that inventory from him. You know what I'm saying? It's just like learning the game.
You got the orders kind of stacked up, and then, then you could actually then go out and buy as many as you got sold. And then,
exactly. Now I'm starting to realize the reason why I was even approached by these individuals, because I was a minor. And so if I got caught,
oh my goodness,
there was, like I'd get a slap on the wrist and,
right.
And that was just messed up.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is what it is.
Yeah. Right. Well, learning experience, at least. I mean,
right.
It seems like it kind of got you interested in not doing a traditional 9 to 5. Have you ever had a traditional 9 to 5, or were you always doing your own thing?
No. I mean, my mom started a business back in the day, and I helped with that here and there.
Okay.
Didn't last that long. And then, I worked at Daimler Trucks North America doing product strategy, Bank of America. I worked at a restaurant for like about 4 or 5 years. So, I had to keep a job to pay for everything else.
I mean, to me, what's so curious to me about entrepreneurs is, especially the ones that come from like I would say a cush job, that they have the security, they have benefits, they just work that job, they're probably good to go, but they leave that and then take a big risk to go start their own thing. I mean, it seems like you're not that risk averse, just from, your childhood, but like that, can you talk us through like kind of what that thought process was? Cause that's always mind blowing to me.
Yeah. I remember sitting in my car seat as a little toddler.
Wow.
And my grandmother driving, and she told me that you always want to be your own boss.
Hmm.
And that always stuck with me. I never really understood what that meant until, high school, and just, it's there. So it's like, okay, I need to get there. It's a goal, but how do you get there? Well, one of the best ways is going and getting a job, learning operations, learn how to take care of a customer, learn about selling, and just customer service in general. And then so, once you feel good about that, and then you actually have a product or a service that you're comfortable with presenting to someone and potentially selling, maybe that'd be a good time to start testing the waters. So, that's kind of an example of, getting out there. But for me, I was really passionate about helping other people navigate some of the things that I had troubles going through as a kid. And that was from high school to college. I didn't know what I wanted to study, but I wanted to be successful. So I went and did took out student loans to go do all these things. And then when I was done, I went to go get a job and I couldn't get a job in what I wanted to do. And it was just like, okay, I just spent all that time and energy into doing all these things. Well, that's messed up. So one of my first ventures that I started straight out of my MBA program was a nonprofit called High School Options, where we helped high school students navigate leadership, entrepreneurship, and just like career planning. So we put the board together and teamed up with some companies where we took groups of kids out to companies like Palo Alto Software and had executives line up and talk about like what was their career path from high school to college and how did they end up here, and like just help kids navigate other career pathways, and just like, hey, things aren't perfect. You have to have like 4 or 5 jobs before maybe you land here and whatnot.
It's almost like it's okay not to know what you're doing when you're 17 or 18. Right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. To me, that's crazy. Like when you're 17 or 18, let's decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
It's difficult.
you're going to be, at 28, you're different than 18.
You're such a different version of yourself at 28 than 18.
Right. Yeah, but
That's so much more.
Yeah, that's interesting. So your first venture was the nonprofit.
Yeah, that was actually the first venture. I said, hey, had some business plan to it. I think I used Live Plan to do that. Put together my board.
OG.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
I started using. Actually, I take that back. The first time that I used your guys' software was freshman year in college, Business Plan Pro.
Oh, yeah, that is.
I used that software.
That's a long time ago.
And that was to write a business plan to open up a pharmacy chain. So my undergrad was pre-med, but I became a pharmacy technician trying to get into pharmacy school. I ended up marrying a pharmacist in the midst of all that.
Gotcha.
But that was why I wanted to go to business school and go to pharmacy. That was the business. It was illegal drug dealing, basically. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in that business. No, seriously, I was like,
now that he's over the age 18, you got to play it a little bit safer.
You got to play it safe, right? So I got to get licensed. So I got to be smart to go do that. No, literally, that was my thinking pathway. And, what do you want to do, man? Owning pharmacies, like that'd be a moneymaker, right? So I started talking to pharmacy owners in their pathway. So I had to learn about it. Like, you got to go to school. And so I started taking science classes, and it led me there. And I started taking more business classes. I knew nothing about real business, right? And then after it took me 1 year to write a business plan, like I could get through the Business Plan Pro and like write a sentence here, though. But I needed real data. Finding that data, that was in 2004, 2005, right? Finding that data on the internet, it's actually one of those things where there wasn't that much data on it.
Yeah, old internet. Yeah.
The old internet. Yeah, I mean, so I had to go talk to people. I finally ran into someone that owned 15 pharmacies here in Oregon and then sold those off to, I think, Walgreens. And he actually taught at Oregon State Business School.
Gotcha.
So, and then when I met him and I was already done with my business plan, I was asking for a review. Like, I need help figuring this out before I finish it. And he told me not to do it. It was dying. It's a dying breed. He's like, Walgreens, Rite Aid, all these companies are just taking over. The margins are going down. It's basically a controlled, system. And
so what made you reach out to him? Because first of all, I think that's a great kind of piece of advice. Like, get a mentor, like someone in the business that actually knows what they're doing and has done it. Like, where did that idea come from? Was that just like obvious to you, or?
Yeah, it absolutely was. I mean, if you want to go talk to an OG that's already been there and done it, and I did that with Best Damn Barbecue Sauce. I've done that with other businesses that I've tried to start. I mean, when we acquired the restaurant, when I talked to another restaurant owners, and I got feedback. So I mean, it's just wisdom. Yeah. Tell me something that I don't know, please.
Right. Right.
Get educated.
And today we're going to focus on like your successful businesses, but it sounds like you had a lot of non-successful, at least ideas or plans. Like what's the ratio of like successful and like the ideas that just didn't pan out?
It's 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what statistics say.
It's
high failure rate.
Yeah. Right. I just think it's tough though, like failing and then like keeping going, like it fail 9 times, that 10th time might be it or it might not, you don't know, but like you never wanted to, like, you just were committed to being an entrepreneur and wanted to do your own thing, be your own boss, like your grandma said, right?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I was working on a failed venture, injury prevention, health and wellness with a buddy of mine out of business school. And as that was failing, I had some time to work on Best Damn Barbie sauce. So I was like already launching another project while trying to figure out where this is going to go. So that's just an example of just like, you know,
Irons in the fire.
just trying to make it happen. And I do have, I mean, I have a couple irons in the fire right now while I already have other things going on, just in case the hedge, because you never know like what's going to take off, what's not going to take off. And if you're like me, I mean, where I am today and where I was, you know, just 5 years ago, I'm a lot smarter, have a lot more wisdom, have a lot more connections, have a lot more connections to capital. So I think I have a higher chance of success working on the next venture. And that's, and a lot of that's not from my resources, but from just lean startup management, just learning what not to do and what to do and what to focus on.
Can you talk about that lean startup management? What is that?
So one of the things that I always work on with other entrepreneurs is the business model canvas. You guys heard of it?
Probably should have heard it, but
yeah, I mean, it's so, you know, you're in business school, you know, they've gone over SWOT analysis and gaps analysis, right? They drain it down your throat.
Sure.
And then true story, you work product strategy, you're doing SWOT analysis every quarter on something, you know, whether it's a good idea, bad idea going against a competitor or theories. Business model canvas is it's a 9-box diagram all working together that you have to fill out that helps create a stronger value proposition for your customer, right? For your business and why you're going to be successful. So it looks at the cost of everything and building value. You know, you're looking at revenue streams, you're looking at cost structures, you're looking at, you know, your relationships, how to be successful with those. You're looking at customer navigation, your demographics, all of these things funnel into your value. And then can you create a strong enough value with everything that you've mapped out? And while you're doing that, you know, you're looking at your costs, you're looking at your margin, and then you start building out, you know, financial models based on that. Before we even start writing a business plan, this is where I like to start. And just right off the bat from there, I'll know if this is a good venture or not.
It's like abundantly clear. It's not. It's like you don't even need to write a business plan, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And then the business plan is just more elaborated of how you're going to knock this out of the park. And writing business plans that I've coached on there, you know, there's 2 reasons why you write a business plan. One is for your own roadmap, so you have a guide. And then the other one is actually share with people and get investors on board or the bank on board to why you should make this investment or why we need a loan for this growth or X, Y, Z, right? So there's 2 types of business plans you write, which does change the verbiage and the financial projections a bit because you have to fudge a little bit to get ahead. But it is what it is.
Yeah. So now, Jade, you went up and actually visited Best Damn. Yeah.
So last week we came up, Shahar and I, and we got to learn about White's Restaurant, which is one of your current ventures.
Yes.
Do you want to talk us through like present day, what you're working on?
So White's Restaurant is an 88-year-old breakfast diner in Salem, Oregon. I started talking to the Oregon Historic Society, trying to get more data on like, okay, is this the oldest breakfast diner? Like, could it be? And the one that's older than us in Salem actually just closed down. So I think we're actually technically the oldest breakfast diner in the state of Oregon.
So classic.
Is it fair to say you put them out of business, or
no?
Okay.
It's just man. Yeah, it's unfortunate. No, I mean, I would prefer them to be in business.
Yeah.
So we actually need more breakfast diners in the state of Oregon. People love breakfast. It's kind of hard to navigate though, because there's like 3 or 4 older restaurants in the state of Oregon. They're like over 100 years old that they serve breakfast too, but it's not clear when they started serving breakfast or
because they've been a restaurant.
They've been a restaurant the whole time, right? So like they're more of a bar now, or they're like a brunch now. Like White's Restaurant has actually gone through that as well in the past. We actually were a full diner for dinner as well, but not anymore. So we're just breakfast and lunch. Can you tell us the story of how you... Yeah. Because your last name is White, right? And the restaurant is called White's Restaurant, and you did not rename it. definitely not.
So how did
like
all this happen?
No. Okay, so the true story is that I had a buddy of mine that's a regular there. He's there like 3 or 4 times a week, and I met him there for breakfast. And we were sitting there at the counter, and he was like, "Man, you should buy this place that has your last name." I'll be like, "Oh, that'd be cool." We're kind of joking around,
Yeah.
and the owner happened to be there as well. And I was like, to the owner, I was like, "Hey, you know," and he was, older gentleman, and I was like, "My name's Mike White. Like, this would be cool to have our own like breakfast diner. It's a great place so far. The food was great. When are you going to sell this place?" I asked him, just like joking with him.
Yeah.
Like I really didn't have the capital to do it at the time. I was just like, I was already doing some other things. And so he said, "Let me get your contact information." He said, "I'll reach out to you here. And if we're ever going to do it, we've thought about it before, but never executed anything." And literally 3, 4, 5 months later, he called me and said, "Hey, we're looking to retire. If you're still interested, let's talk."
Yeah.
And I told him straight up, I'm like, "Listen, yes, let's talk. I gotta tell you straight up, like I'm expecting my firstborn child.
Oh my gosh.
My wife, that's like in like 4 or 5 months, and like I can't make any big financial decisions right now. Like we're trying to calm things down, ready for the baby." I said, if this deal were to go through, I mean, it's not going to be for another it might be a year, unfortunately. And I was like, "Are you willing to wait that long?" He said, "Yeah, we're not in a hurry. Like they were already retired when they bought White's, so it was like an after retirement thing for
Project.
them."
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
Hobby.
it was a hobby.
Yeah.
So we started talking. We just met face to face real quick, just high level stuff. Let's just talk what's the opportunity, and we started talking about the financials, and there was opportunity. And that's all, what he or she say, whatever, let's look. I want to see the financials. And then there was no problem with it. They didn't hide anything. So it was basically from buyer to seller. We didn't have to use a broker. We just literally straight up shook hands and didn't sign any confidentiality agreements or no letter of interest or anything. It was literally just handshaking. This was old school stuff. It was awesome. This is how business should be done.
Yeah, right.
Just looking at each other in the eyes and just
Too honest. Kind of parties,
next thing they wanted a financial statement with some bank statements showing that we have assets, and we have to put that together. And said, we are who we say we are as well, and go that route. And so luckily it all came together. We got a acquisition loan through Craft 3.
Okay.
Which was awesome. And we also put a little bit of lien on our home too from some quick cash to make the deal happen. So it was awesome.
Can you talk a little bit about a couple of things, the acquisition loan? I think a lot of our listeners are going to want to know about how to get funding. So that's one part. And the second part was you were talking about looking at the financials and you're like, it looks good. Like, what does that even
What were you
mean?
looking at?
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that there was cash available to draw. I mean, there's a lot of, especially startups. I work with a lot of startups. Like we have startups, and like it's really hard to start a business and like start to pay yourself out of them right away. Sometimes it takes time to build that up. And so I'm familiar with like taking money out and then putting money back in to grow, because I need money to pay bills right now. But then, I have another job that I put into the business to help grow. Right. So it's just one of those things that it's really hard to manage a startup from that perspective. So looking at a clean business that's been around for 88 years, that has, customers every single day. I mean, this is your typical business case study that you look at from, Harvard Business. They'll show you the financials, or like, a C Corp on the stock exchange. This is what you expect. And so it was easier to analyze from what I've learned in school, the real financials of $1 million business. Because a lot of us entrepreneurs are trying to build $1 million business, and it takes time to do that. And the cash isn't always there to really pay bills, right? You got to buy product, or you have to have so many expenses. You got to make it work. But so the process was looking at the profitability. I wanted to see I wanted to see every single month for the last 5 years, because we went through COVID. They went through COVID. So I had to.
And they survived, which is
they survived. So that was a huge. That was not a red flag. That was a
huge
green flag saying, okay, you guys survived COVID. What did you do? And I looked at the revenue. They got shot. Like it was like, oh my goodness. Like so did a lot of other businesses that had to close their doors. But they weathered the storm, and it was mainly because they had a tight knit crew that actually cared about everything, and everyone fought for it.
The employees?
The employees.
Gotcha.
Right. You know, so they understood that, hey, you know, people aren't coming in. I can't get paid right now. But they still stayed as employees and worked when they could, and like they made it work.
Wow.
And then those customers wanted to support it, and they came in when they could.
It's like a community.
Wow.
It was a community thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so it really showed that, like, hey, White's restaurant is actually it's the real deal. There's 88 years.
That gives me
into it.
goosebumps.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Right. So we had to analyze, you know, numbers from 2017, basically all the way up until, what was that, mid to 2023 when we acquired it. So doing a financial analysis on that, we actually had to get rid of 2021 and 2022 numbers because they were just shot. There was nothing to, you know, take from them except for you guys actually had it was basically 50% of the revenue was gone, wiped out, with all the regular expenses on top of it. So to answer your question, you know, what are we looking for when acquiring a business? You know, profitability. Can you pay back, you know, the loan that you take out for, you know, acquiring it, or what's the return on investment if you're using cash or investors' cash?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to analyze that, and like, when can everyone be paid back, and can you do it without stress on the business? And then there's so many other things in play as far as, you know, the team, the culture, the variable expenses that you see as a line item on a P&L statement, but like, you know, is that going to go up? And yes, when we acquired White's insurance, this is something that no one knew. Insurance, they paid about $5,000 a year for insurance, combined business insurance and building insurance came out to about $6,000
a month,
a year.
Oh, a year. Okay.
We had to pay about $16,000. So that was another, it was another like expense. It's just like, oh my goodness, that's crazy. So there was that. And then, you know, we were about to close the deal, and the owner sat down with me. He just said, hey, eggs right now just went up 18%.
Yeah, wow.
I heard they
What?
use eggs in breakfast.
Yeah. Every meal comes with eggs just about. And so I was just like, oh no, what do you do? And, you know, we had to raise prices just a little bit as we came in. That was something that we didn't want to have to do, was raise prices.
Yeah, you kind of wanted to get in and just run it like it's been ran, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, the previous owner, you know, they were raising prices about twice a year, but they were adding like 10 cents, 20 cents to each plate or whatnot. And I had to come in and just do a straight up, just flat line 5%, because the previous owner didn't know plate costs and margins per plate.
Mm.
So that was something I was asking for. I'm like, I want to know, like,
What's number one on the menu?
Yeah.
What's the margin? Number one,
exactly.
Number two,
And it wasn't that. It was old school. Like, they're just making money to make it. They make good money, and it was that. So we actually had our distributor, McDonald Wholesale, actually help us with that. So they had a huge Excel spreadsheet, and because we get everything from them, so they know the real cost of everything, and they helped us navigate that, and that helped out a lot. So I feel so much more confident in what we're doing.
Yeah, and then getting the capital. I mean, I think this is a question a lot of people is how much capital? I mean, because people can get too much, they can get not enough. Like, how did you determine that amount?
So I mean, so there's a valuation on the business. You have to negotiate that with the owner. Usually, when you're, evaluating a mom and pop shop like a restaurant, you're taking the first and second year take home of the owners, and that's like an average. It's not basically, it doesn't really have anything to do with how much revenue you did. It's just how much money is the owner taking home.
How much you paying yourself? Right?
Yeah, exactly. So you take that, times it by, it's anywhere between, times it by 1.5 to 3, maybe 4, depends on the industry. Tech is different. That's just a whole another game. Yeah. But for a restaurant, usually it's 2 to 3x of what the owner take home was on average.
And that's the amount
last 2 years.
Getting. Okay. Yeah.
Right. So that's how they can sell. That's how much they can sell the company for. And then, so we agreed on that price, and then the real estate was separate. So it was 2 separate transactions, 2 different LLCs filed to acquire those assets, which is another layer to the acquisition, because the real estate is what really appreciates a lot faster, I would say. And that's where the wealth building begins.
Did you know that going in, that there's going to be two separate acquisitions?
Well, I told him we both agreed, like, yes, there's going to be two sides to it, because I wanted the real estate because of making sure that rent doesn't go up and up, right? I want to control that just for the stability of the business.
So you own the actual, okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah. So that's it. And there's a lot of like retirees that own the buildings and they're selling their businesses, but they're not selling the real estate, so they can have that, $10,000 a month income stream from real estate. So that's how it works.
That's interesting. Wow. Yeah. So then now you have, go ahead.
Well, to answer your question about getting a loan, the SBA, Small Business Administration, they have what's called SBA 7A, I believe, and they help out with acquisitions. You have up to $5 million to use with 10% down. You have to have a credit score of like 680 and then 10%. And then another small requirement that people don't realize is that you actually have to have a little bit of experience in that industry that you're trying to acquire.
Right.
Because they want to make sure that you know what you're doing. And you got to have a business plan, and you got to show some things to the bank. But that's there. I don't know when that's actually, I think that was put into law that the government has to do that and help hedge. And I think it's the SBA actually isn't giving the money. It's the bank that's giving it to it. And they're actually doing a profit or a loan loss fund to help hedge against that loss if you were to fail or something like that. I don't really know the whole back logistics. I just know that, hey, you have up to $5 million for an SBA to acquire a company. You just got to have 5% down. So if you want to acquire a $5 million company, you got to have $500,000 business plan, credit score, some experience in that. So it's a great way to leverage. And so I thought we were going to do that with Craft 3, but actually Craft 3 is they're their own bank. They're on their own finance. They have their own bank, and they like to help minorities and women-owned businesses, with wealth building. And they do a lot of real estate loans and whatnot. But then I fit into that gap of we can do a restaurant loan for an acquisition. So we went through their process, and it was basically the same thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's one of the, I think you said 200 businesses you own, I think. No, so then we'll be doing some tasting later of the Best Damn Barbecue Sauce. But
you have a company called Best Damn Barbecue Sauce that you started several years ago,
2018, and
it has kind of a funny origin story.
Yes.
It started in your kitchen.
Absolutely.
So you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I was literally. I love barbecue sauce. I always have. A quick story. I took a missionary trip to Uganda in 2012, and I was told by other people that went there, like, hey, the food, like, there's just no flavor. You're eating rice and you're eating chicken or whatnot, and like, you bring some hot sauce. And so I went to Famous Dave's Barbecue. They had those little packets that you could take, and I went to the manager. I'm like, hey, I'm going to Africa for like 3 weeks. I was like, can I just take like a bunch of packets, please? And they're like, absolutely. I just need some flavor. And so every day I was eating barbecue sauce with my chicken and rice. I was getting kids hooked onto it too. Like, it's great. I just love barbecue sauce. Another quick story. I was here in Eugene. This was, 20 years ago. I was on a date with my girlfriend, and we were at some type of steakhouse. It was actually in a home. I don't know if it's still here. It's like some house that has like a steakhouse in it or a restaurant. I was sitting down. I ordered a steak. It was dry. I was like, "Do you guys have some barbecue sauce?" And they're like, "No, we don't have any barbecue sauce."
Sorry, what? That's insane.
Yeah, I was like, "What? You don't have any barbecue sauce?" And I told my girlfriend at the time, I'm like, "I'll be right back." She's like, "Where you go?" I said, "I'll be right back." I literally looked down the street, and there's like a little mini mart. And I walk in and grab some Sweet Baby Ray's, and I come back and I pour it on my steak. They were livid. The people there were like, "I can't believe you just did that." Like, it was I don't care. I just paid $50 for a steak, and it was dry. Yeah, I want some barbecue sauce.
Fix it for me.
I want some barbecue sauce. You know what I'm saying? So that just goes to show you that I love barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
And a moist steak.
And I usually don't need barbecue sauce for a steak, but they did.
Yeah.
But sorry, I didn't mean to call out any businesses from 20 years ago.
Well, you didn't name any names.
No, yeah, we didn't know anything. Yeah.
There are a couple in houses here.
I'm sure it was you guys thought I was underage and didn't really respect my steak, so.
So like I just picture you with like a little fanny pack, and you always have like an emergency like barbecue sauce in there just in case.
Okay, so the story is I literally had about 12 to 15 bottles of barbecue sauce in my refrigerator. I opened my refrigerator to put some sauce on my eggs in the morning, and I literally was just like, I had some coffee in my hand, and I was just like, man, what sauce should I use? And I was just staring. I was still trying to wake up, and I was just staring at the refrigerator, just like, man, nothing sounds good right now.
I've had that stare too.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I just want some good sauce. and I was like, you know what? I'm fed up. I took all these sauces out. Some of them were expired from 3 years ago. I was like, I haven't even had this in a while, And it's like, I just need to make my own sauce. And then I just started to think about it for a couple of days. And this was in 2017. This was December of 2017. And I just got done. I graduated my MBA in 2016. So I was kind of nerded out on
looking for opportunities.
And then I started looking into barbecue sauce. And luckily, there's a lot more data on that industry and whatnot. It's actually a $2 billion industry. Sweet Baby Ray's does $150 million a year. They're the leader. There's numerous barbecue sauce companies that do, $50 million, $80 million a year, $100 million a year. There's just a lot of them out there. And I was just like, okay, well, that's a good market. And there's 2,300 barbecue sauces on the market. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
And the reason why, you go to your local grocery store and there's they have 20.
Yeah.
Right. Or something like that. Or 30 of them.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, there's only 30 of them on the shelf. How do you get this shelf space?
Seriously.
You got to start figuring out, and I remember telling my buddy, I was like, I'm going to start a barbecue sauce company. And he was just like, good luck, bro.
It's saturated.
It's saturated. It's super saturated.
Yeah.
But that's where strategy comes in. And
so talk to us about.
Okay. So.
Because it's gone well.
Yes, it has.
So how did you make that happen when there's.
Okay, here we go.
It's a saturated market.
Branding. Okay, so I'll talk you through it.
Branding.
So when I was like, okay, if I'm going to start this, what am I going to name the barbecue sauce? I was going to name it Mike's Barbecue Sauce. Who's going to buy that? No one, right? And I'm thinking here, I'm going to create this sauce, and it's going to be backyard barbecue. My friends are going to eat it, my family, and then I'm going to stop right there. It's going to be a side hustle, right?
So you weren't thinking it was going to be big, right? You were just
I was thinking, if I'm going to put energy into it, I didn't know how much it was going to cost yet. So I was thinking big, but just acting small.
Okay.
How big could I get it if I'm going to have fun with this? And then I was also thinking okay, when am I going to shut this thing down? If I go to a farmer's market and no one buys it, I'm done. It's over with.
Sure.
And then so, I started looking online. No one was using Best Damn Barbecue Sauce. I was like, I'm going to name it Best Damn Barbecue Sauce because that's more my culture and my humor and whatnot.
It definitely does jump out.
Yeah.
I'm looking through 30.
Right.
And
it's damn.
Damn.
There we go.
Damn. I guess.
Yeah.
Here's my money, right? Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So, so I started looking online and it wasn't trademarked. I started saving the social media real estate for Instagram and Facebook and some other platforms. And that's when I went and got some barbecue sauces and actually made a label and put it on there, took a picture and made a website before I even had a product yet. Cause I just wanted to visualize it and started playing with it. Cause this would be my first website for a product that I ever made.
Pretty cool.
That is great. So you did all that without even having the barbecue sauce.
Yeah, I didn't have it. I mean, I started looking into it. It was expensive. How do you do that? And I knew I could do it. It's just, when do you pull the trigger? And then, I started to play with recipes, and then I did hire some people to help me with I didn't know your pH balances. Even though my background is biochemistry and the sciences, I mean food chemistry is a whole nother. You can go and get your master's, your doctorate in food chemistry, right? I mean that's how crazy it is. Wow. So you have to hire.
You're playing around in the kitchen trying to come up with a recipe by yourself.
It started with Sweet Baby Ray's as a base and just adding stuff to it. I mean, playing with it, taking stubs and playing with that and trying to figure out, get some books and whatnot. But I didn't really get anywhere with, it's all sugar. You know, like it all tasted good, but like nothing was like, this is like, what can you name the best damn? Like, I don't know. Like,
Right.
so that's when you have to hire people to like get your own formulary going. And so I did do that eventually. But in the meantime, I had a buddy of mine that said, "Hey, do you think you have the best damn barbecue sauce?" Which I didn't. He was like, "You should enter. you should enter. You know, the American Royal. It's the largest barbecue sauce competition in the world in Kansas City." So I enter it in.
Not thinking it's the best damn barbecue sauce.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm having fun.
It's pretty good.
I'm having fun. Like I don't even have a product yet. Like
Let's go for it.
You know, I have a website. It's like a website, and I get this email and phone call in
So brave.
April.
That's insane.
I know.
In April for this competition. And I'm sitting, literally, I'm in my underwear at my table with coffee, with
I can picture it.
And it was like Jerry Maguire showing me the money, like in his kitchen, talking on the phone to his attorney.
It's a good moment.
I literally, like, they called and said, "Congratulations, Mike, you won first place Mild Tomato." And like out of 380 barbecue sauces that were submitted that year.
Yeah.
And
living up to the name.
Right. And it was just like, and then all of a sudden online, I started getting all these online orders because all that publicity happened in Kansas City, and I didn't have a product yet. So I had all this money coming in. I don't even think I had a bank account yet. Right. I don't know. I didn't even open a bank account yet. It was just money was waiting in. I don't know how that worked. That was what, 5-6 years ago. So anyways, I am running around my house in my underwear, calling all my friends and family, like, "You won't believe this. I just won the American Royal XYZ," and most people didn't even know what that meant.
Yeah, right.
I'm just now figuring this out.
Just know I'm number one.
I'm number one. Because I've been telling, so one of the things is that I worked on too was I started getting feedback from my friends and family or my network about my logo. I actually had a graphic artist, you know, he made 10 logos for me, and we put a number by each one, and I sent that out to people, like, which one do you like? Which font do you like? And people voted on it. Like, you know, I used SurveyMonkey, and so they actually did that for me. And then so I finally got the font, and people liked a different logo, and I put those together and did it and re-voted again, and they all voted for the logo that you see on the bottle.
Oh, cool.
So I got that, and I got that trademarked. And then here we are. I got to figure out who's going to co-pack this stuff for me, because I'm going to market with it now. I'm like number one. I got a blue ribbon. It's going down.
It's validated.
And I told my wife, because my wife, when I first started, she was like, "No, you're not." Because I was just doing I was a failed startup going into this.
Yeah.
You know, I've already depleted a lot of my money. And she's like, "Your time is up. Like, it's time to go get a job." Well, my co-packer that I eventually hired, they gave me an initial deal, because I only had so much money for 2 flavors, because they have a minimum order that you have to do, and
Gotcha.
I didn't have all the money for the flavors that I wanted, so they actually gave me 100 cases of each of my 5 flavors that I want, or actually I had 3 flavors when I started, and so they actually helped me out with that. And so I was able to go to a farmer's market. I started June 6th with in 2018 was my first farmer's market, and I had 3 flavors, and we sold really well.
So 100 of each flavor.
Yep.
And this is the first time you sold, like actually
in person,
like a stranger,
right.
not just family and friends, right?
Right.
A stranger paid you money.
I actually paid for, my tent, my tables, a little bit of marketing stuff, and I said, "Okay, here's the first day of business, right? Like, we got, let's go." And it was in an alley. It was a farmer's market, like in an alley in downtown Salem. That was our first day, and we sold pretty well. And I was like, "This is fun.
It's rad.
This is great."
It's just a fun time.
And then we started doing farmers markets. So we did $50,000, a little bit over $50,000 in sales our first 6 months in business, just from farmers markets. But I'll never forget going to the Wilsonville farmers market. This is week 2 in business, week 2, and we were already there week 1. We were already at the Wilsonville farmers market selling. We're selling really well at all these farmers markets we're going to. But week 2, I remember the farmer's market just opened up, and this lady's walking down, and she was like, "Best damn barbecue sauce." I was like,
"Oh,
yeah, I remember you from last week." She was like, "We're already out." I was like, "Yes, yes, we have sauce." And that was my first returning customer.
Oh, fun. That's important.
And that's when I knew I was in business.
Yeah.
Like, I got my first returning customer. And then that same market, we had returning customers. Like, they said, "This was so good, I got to go buy it for my family." and then like here my in-laws are in town, they want to taste your sauce, and then they buy some and take it back to Utah with them, right? I mean, and then we're hitting, bro. We're selling out, and I got to call my co-packer, be like, hey, I got money now.
Yeah.
Let's do a larger batch and like let's get it rolling, and then and so there we were. We're just getting started in a business. We have this brand. We're getting customers. I think, where do I want to go from here? It was in my business plan. And I think that if I would have probably, where I am now and what I wrote in my business plan, if I would have stuck the plan, I probably would have been more successful, but I deviated.
Why? So, yeah, why?
When you're an entrepreneur, it's like a squirrel. You want to go do these things. You want to go this way, this way. Exactly. It's like, and so I think that I was having success going down these different pathways, but it was cutting me thin.
So you were spreading out.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it was one of those things. And I wanted to do this like every entrepreneur. We want to be in as many grocery stores as we can, right? Because we think that's successful, but actually running a profitable business is successful.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So growth in and of itself is not necessarily the goal, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Until you can get investors on board that's okay with the debt, right? And, they know where you can take it. Then, until then, you need to be working on profitability as much as you can.
Yeah. Yeah. So like forecasting that future.
Yeah,
if the
exactly.
investor is not seeing it, they're not going to put money into it.
Right.
Yeah,
They like to see profitability.
Yeah.
And I proved profitability on year 2. So let's go back. So year 1, we did about $52,000.
And that's straight farmers markets.
Straight farmers markets.
Okay.
Yep. Straight farmers markets. But I was doing like 8 farmers markets a week.
That's a lot.
It's a hustle.
As a hustle, I actually had my uncle and aunt just retired that year, and they said, we'll help you out with one farmer's market. So they did one in their neck of the woods once a week for me to help get it out. And so I was really cut thin from the beginning, just driving around and going to all these farmers markets and then buying food while I'm there and all that stuff, just being on the go. But what I learned, our sales were going up. So what I learned for next year, actually, I was like, okay, I need to be profitable the following year. And so in a 12-month period, we only did $53,000 or $54,000 the next year. So we only grew by $2,000 or $3,000. But my bottom line was nice because I cut out a lot of farmers markets that weren't as good as other ones and just stuck to the ones that we sold a lot.
Just got more efficient and then just
got more efficient.
Your top mover.
Yeah, exactly. And then I eventually integrated new flavors, and people love that. And then we ended up selling more, and then we ended up doing larger trade shows. And we ended up, now we're doing, when we first started selling at Oregon State Fair, we did about $5,000 in an 11-day period. And now when we're there, we do like about $11,000 to $12,000.
Wow.
So we're doing a little bit over $1,000 a day because there's repeat customers. People know who we are, and it's just, you built that up. So that's kind of an example of that.
So how did you get into your first store though? Because that's different, right?
Yeah. So that's okay. The grocery industry is a tough one. It's a lot harder than most people think until they get their butts handed to them. So, you're trying to get into grocery stores. Grocery stores won't pick you up because you're not in any other grocery store. So why would they be the first?
It's too much of a risk for them.
It's too much of a risk, right? And it happens. And then, when you do talk to them, they initially cut you off by just asking you one question: who's your distributor? I don't have a distributor. And they're just like, okay, then how are we going to get the product? Like, I'll just drop it off. They're like, we have 200 stores. How are you going to drop it off to each store? And it's like, okay.
You think eight farmers markets is hard?
Yeah, exactly. And then you say, okay, I need a distributor. So you go and start reaching out to the distributors. Distributors won't even call you back. The first question they ask you is, what grocery stores are you in? I'm not in the grocery. I need a distributor to get into grocery stores.
It's like a chicken and egg thing.
It's a chicken and egg thing. And it's a normal. This is normal.
Yeah, right.
So what you have to do is just land both of them at the same time and bring them together.
Oh my.
Yeah. It's a pain. It's a pain. So, if you finally get a buyer or, a buyer that has a conversation, you can start, what you want to do is start talking about sales. We're selling out. We're at all these markets. People want to know where they can buy it. And then if that can get you through the front door, then sometimes the distributor and a buyer come together and say, okay, let's try this out.
Was that meeting like you got to have both of them in the same meeting, or was it like I'll talk to them, if you get a distributor, you're good, and then talk to the distributor and then like
Both at the same time.
Okay, gotcha.
It happens at the same time from my experience.
Gotcha.
So I'll talk a little bit about that. So, and I'm here trying to get into Fred Meyer. Okay, so before I even got started, even launched the farmer's market, I'm already reaching out to Fred Meyer and Safeway and all these grocery stores. So I just want to say, like, let's get a purchase order going, and then that way I can
Like prove it out.
I can say, hey, we got sales. Like, let's go and get this money, right? Because I only have this much capital, right? Like, I don't have that much. I got to start somewhere. And so I finally, got enough emails out, showing up, dropping off samples at distributors' doors on the front counters and leaving it for people and not hearing anything back. And I finally get Fred Meyer and DPI, Specialty Foods, together. And so basically they said, yeah, you have to work with DPI, Specialty Foods, to come here, and we're interested. And then that's all I heard. I was like, okay, wow, I got an email back from Fred Meyer. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, huge.
Pretty cool. And then finally DPI called me and said, yeah, we got some meetings going on. They're moving fast. Fred Meyer, they're launching, a bunch of these sauces. And I'll never forget how excited I was. Like, all these, I was dropping samples off at Fred Meyer every quarter. Like, we're the truth. We're selling out. Anyways, I get into a meeting with Fred Meyer and DPI. I felt kind of bullied a little bit.
Kind of like big wigs, kind of. Like,
yeah. And I was like, but no, this is my business. How did you make that decision? And then when I was having a conversation with Fred Meyer, the buyer wasn't looking me in my eyes. She was looking at the broker for the DPI, and they're like, yeah, we're going to launch you here in like about 3-4 months. And I was like, cool. I was excited. I was like, thank you so much for the opportunity. Great. And I was excited, but something didn't sit right. And I remember just like not moving on it. I was just like, I can't do this. Like, something just told me not to do it. And thank God I didn't, because I know that they took on some other sauces, and like those sauces fumbled really bad, and like it just didn't work out.
Your gut.
Yeah, it was a gut thing. It was great. And then literally like later that year, it was in December. It was December. I'm up at night, just like, man, I need to get into some more grocery stores. And I was already in market of choice in a Ross Fresh Markets at this time. I'll talk about that in a minute, how important that is. But these are these big box stores. And I'm up emailing these contacts because I walked into grocery stores and say, hey, who's the buyer for this? And like, can I get their contact? And most of the time there's no, but sometimes they're like, here, call this person. Like, really nice people. Yeah. And so I had this email with buyers with Safeway for a while, and I've been emailing her since before I even launched. And it's at night, late December, before Christmas. I want to say, no, it was after Christmas. And I'm saying, hey, Mike White, here goes my sales sheet. We've been giving them an update, whoever's behind this email, like, I haven't heard anything back. And literally it was midnight. And she emailed me back, and I'm at midnight, and I'm just at my computer like, she was like, yeah, we're doing category reviews right now. Let's make an appointment next week. And I'm just like, oh, yes. And then so, my mentor, I called my mentor. I'm like, I got a meeting, and she like teed me up, and she was just like, this is what you need to do, blah, blah, blah. So I put together this presentation for them and whatnot, and this tasting on her table. And so I get to the meeting with Safeway, super nice lady. She's just super busy. She manages a huge category. It's not just barbecue sauce. It's the whole sauce aisle of hot sauces and everything that go with, condiments. I mean, that's a lot.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm like, I told her, like, we sell a lot of barbecue sauce. She says, I know you do. I was at a show and I saw you, and you had a line around this corner. And I was like, why didn't you come and see me? Like, I would have told everyone, just back on up. I was like, Safeway's here, Albertson's here. And she was just like, I didn't want to interrupt anything. And I was like, have you got my email from like 2000? She's like, yeah, I got your email. 2018. I was like, what's going on? Well, now's the time. Like, we're not going to talk about that. We only have 30 minutes. So it's like, let's get it done.
Yeah.
And so I walked her through the presentation, and she was like, great. She was like, let me introduce you to Katie. He's a distributor. They're actually in the office. So I got distributor lining me up and onboarding me as we're like talking, giving me the paperwork. And this is when you're going to launch and all this stuff. So I'm just like, oh, this is awesome. So we launched with like 140 stores.
Comparing that experience to like the one you were talking about with the bad, you know, you're feeling
there we
like
go.
a gut decision. This one seems like the exact opposite, where you're just like,
it was an exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to tell any people in this industry, culture with grocery stores and buyers is huge.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a buyer that wants you and your product fits their culture and what their customers want, that's where you want to be. It's really hard to go getting into different grocery stores that are big box that aren't ready for you yet, and you don't have the money to play the promo game with them yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the conversation came in with Market of Choice. That was our first grocery store that we got into. John Boyle, he is the buyer there. He's been there for a while. He's not even on the grading scale. He's beyond. I can't believe it. Like, he's the best with ecosystem building when it comes to new ventures getting into grocery. He really
like promotes it, or that's like his. Like,
he promotes it. He loves the culture. He understands that Oregon is has a lot of entrepreneurs that build a lot of cool things, especially in the food and beverage industry, and like people just need a place to sell. And he's the one that would most likely put you in one store just to let you know. He wants to know that you understand your business, your margin, your costs. Are you going to come and sample? How are you going to build this business?
Yeah.
And we will give you, depending on where you are, he'll give you either, 1 to 2 stores to help you navigate that business case to get your sales up and whatnot, and making sure that you understand how to be successful.
It's like a true partner almost. Yeah.
Right. And then, or he'll put you in all of like 11 stores that they have, or 12 stores now. And I was lucky enough to be put in all 12, and we've done well there over time. That was the first time though. It was, they have a program that gets you in, and it's a really good program for local individuals.
So step 1 to becoming the chief boss sauce
of the West Coast.
Trademark. Yeah. That's awesome. First of all, just going to the farmers markets, like I think some people have this like, oh, well, if I have this product and it's just the best product out there, people are going to want to buy it, right?
Yep.
But you kind of have to put in the work, right? Like
Absolutely.
You have to put in the work.
So yeah, no, 100%. A lot of entrepreneurs that I work with, I tell them, go to the farmer's market, go and get some customers, go and hear their feedback. Because if you go to a farmer's market and your sales aren't good, like you're not going to sell well in a grocery store.
Trust that.
Yeah, you got to trust that.
Yeah.
It's another way of also, coming up with a new product and testing the market. And if customers are telling you that they do like something or they don't like something, what are you going to do as an entrepreneur? Are you just going to be like, oh, okay, thanks, but then like still go full hedge with it and just like, hey, I got the best there is, right? No, you gotta adapt.
That's your opinion, maybe.
Yeah,
like,
right,
yeah.
exactly. You gotta adapt and actually customize that. So I actually did that at a farmer's market first year. I have a pineapple barbecue sauce, and customers were like, "I wish this had more pineapple in it." I was like, "Okay," and I started getting that feedback, and I was like, "Well, we're gonna have to start putting more pineapple in it."
Yep.
And then they came back to me and saying, "This is way better than it was before." We actually, instead of putting the pineapple concentrate, we actually put pineapple chunks in it. And so it just made it better. Yeah, just way better.
I mean, and you were doing feedback loop just with your branding, right? Like you were sending out the 10, right, and getting feedback.
Well,
right?
that was for the branding. We also did that with the flavor. I had a bunch of sauces lined up, and I had family come over to my house, and they would just taste it and like, this is the best one.
Yeah.
So we rolled with those.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're getting close to time here, but I did want to ask you. I was looking at your website, and you have. Is it a nonprofit? It was like the World Kitchen.
Central Kitchen.
Central Kitchen, yep.
Yeah, can you speak to that a little bit? Because you're not just being an entrepreneur to like just make money. It seems like you're really invested in the community,
right.
especially with White's Restaurant.
Yep.
Yeah, White's Diner. Yeah, tell us about that and why you feel that's important.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you do is. The question is, why do we do what we do? So I've always had to do something nonprofit wise in everything that I do. I've even tried to build a tech platform that basically paid nonprofits while making money to do it, just because it's just the social aspect is really cool. And I didn't start like that with Best Damn Barbecue Sauce. I just said, hey, I'm going to integrate this in. So World Centric Kitchen, they do some really cool things around the world. And every once in a while, we'll cut them a check.
It's not required at all.
It's not required of me.
Yeah.
It's not that much money. Like, don't get me wrong. We're not $1 million barbecue sauce company yet. It's not anything to brag about, but it's something.
Yeah.
You know,
That's awesome. So speaking of the barbecue sauce, I remember when we came up and chatted with you last week, you talked a little bit about how you found your sweet spot, is what I'm calling it. So at a certain point, you decided not to take on any more funding, and that you weren't going to try to scale, and that you were good.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how you made that decision?
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things that happened in my life that just said, hey, it's not the right time to do that right now. And how can I make this business work for me versus me working for it? So for a while, I was in the trenches, like trying to go full blown to the next level. So like a couple of things, I had my first born child on the way. Best Damn Barbecue Sauce doesn't spit out enough money for me to like build wealth yet, right? We're not there yet. For all the time and energy, it's a building brand. And then, so I did have some experience expanding a little bit too faster. That was bigger for my own pocket, right? Because you need a lot of cash to do it. And I've tried to raise money to get to a certain point, and fundraising is really difficult. So, I mean, just the culmination of everything and what's happening at the time, it's like, let's scale it back and like just stay local for right now.
Local meaning?
Just Oregon.
A lot of grocery stores.
Yeah, right now, what are we in? Like, we were in 1,100 grocery stores at our peak, which isn't that much. It's actually not that much.
Okay.
I didn't even know there were that many grocery stores in Oregon.
There's 38,000 grocery stores in America. So I mean, I didn't even hit 1%, right? I mean, it's really not that much. You really need to have like 4 or 5 SKUs in a grocery store and be in like about 7,000 stores minimum to like actually say that, hey, we're actually a company and have an office space and have some employees and then everyone have on payroll, right? It takes a lot to get there. For me personally, it's just really hard, especially with COVID and a lot of investor sentiment, just like, where they're going to put their dollars, barbecue sauce it or real estate it. Well, real estate's a safer bet, right? So I think it was just timing. Cool. But for now, I mean, barbecue sauce, we can go to a show and sell really well. And I mean, I could just do that. I could just do state fairs and like county fairs and like trade shows just in Oregon, maybe some in Washington, and probably do $300,000 a year. And the margins are way better there. Like I can take way more. It's just the time and the effort, and then do it. Is that what I want to do? And is that the model that I want to do? And the answer is no.
Is it sustainable? Do I want to be doing this 5 years?
And then who wants to buy that? Right. No one wants to buy a job.
Right.
So I mean, I'm still struggling with where I want to take it. And I just bounced back a week ago and said, okay, this is where I want to go. And so I'm going to stay local for a while. There's 4 million people in Oregon, and probably only 500,000 people have heard of us. That's how small we are. We're not anything big, right? So like, think about it from that perspective. I actually could do $2 million a year in revenue just from Oregon alone if I really put 110%.
Yeah, why focus on Maine if you can just get everything you can out of Oregon, right? Yeah.
And that wasn't the business plan initially.
Yeah.
So
I was having too much fun doing all these things and doing it. And then so like now it's like, okay, well, if I would have just focused on that for the last 6 years, I think I could have been 50% market share in just Oregon.
Right.
In households. I'm talking about 50% of households, not grocery stores. Because I don't know how many grocery stores are there in Oregon. Not even 500? Not even that. I mean, there's probably like 350 grocery stores in Oregon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you definitely have a couple more clients here. Well, depending.
Yeah.
Customers,
Well,
I guess. Yeah.
And we're about to go try it for the first time.
Yes, and I'm excited.
I'm hungry.
Yeah,
Can't
I'm hungry
wait.
too.
Oh, wait, hold on. Are you guys eating or am I eating too? Because this is not fair.
I think
We're all
gonna
gonna
eat.
try it.
All right, there we
We're
go.
gonna eat,
Thank
yeah.
you.
All right, cool. Well,
All right.
thanks for joining us for this conversation.
Yeah, that's
And
appreciated. Cool.
yeah.
And we'll probably do a little follow up next year to see how expansion to California.
Let's do that.
Yeah. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank
All right.
you, Mike.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining us today.
We'll see you next time.